welcome back to my channel. My name is Graslin. Actually, I decided to change my name to Graslin because, I don't know, I just like that name better. I've been really struggling to think of a name, and I've just decided to go with Graslin because it's a cool like internet name or whatever. And if you haven't been here, welcome. I talk about astrology stuff, so that's exciting. In this video, I want to talk about oppositions in astrology specifically. I want to do a series on oppositions. And basically what an opposition in astrology means is that, well, first of all, it's an aspect between two planets. Okay, it's an aspect. Right, and it's considered the hardest aspect in astrology. Besides the conjunction, the conjunction can be considered the most strongest and the most powerful, but the conjunction can be positive or negative. Oppositions are strictly negative, and it's not negative in like a bad sense, like you're doomed, but basically it takes effort on your part to basically work through the opposition. And oppositions are actually very good because they help people build their character and their personality. So don't feel bad for having an opposition. So it's a type of aspect, as I said before, where two planets in an astrology chart are completely opposite from one another. Or in other words, they're 180 degrees apart. The reason why oppositions are difficult to deal with is because there's kind of like a sense of duality here, where both planets in a chart are trying to overtake each other. You could think of it as kind of like a scale, where one planet is too heavy and they're trying to balance each other down. But what an opposition wants is harmony, right? It wants balance. It wants a complete, basically it wants both of the planets to come together and kind of express each other equally, and to learn to take turns and to make sure that both planets are expressed equally enough just to reach the perfect blending of these energies. And you could almost say that oppositions are like, they're very similar to the sign of Libra, right? Because Libra is the scale and it's kind of balancing everything. And when you have an opposition, in a sense, it's like a Libra placement. You're trying to balance these energies out. And you could say that people who have a lot of oppositions in their chart, or they have planets on one side of their chart versus a bunch of other planets on another side, and so there's this clear opposition, you could almost say they have a personality like a Libra, because they're trying to balance out these energies and they're trying to weigh everything. So whenever two planets are 180 degrees apart, that means that they will always be in opposite zodiac signs. So, and there are 6 possible different oppositions. So for example, if you have a planet in Aries, opposition for that would be a planet in Libra. If you have a planet in Taurus, the opposite of that would be a planet in Scorpio. If you have a planet in Gemini, the opposite of that would be a planet in Sagittarius. If you have a planet in Cancer, the opposite planet of that would be Capricorn. If you have a planet in Leo, the opposite of that would be a planet in Aquarius. And lastly, if you have a planet in Virgo, the opposite planet would be a planet in Pisces. And it's really important to know the type of zodiac signs that take place in an opposition, because it helps flavor it and helps give like more of an understanding of the opposition that you're dealing with, right? So if you're, so for example, if you have an opposition between Aries and Libra, it's going to be a lot of issues regarding individuality, liberty, and freedom. If you have an opposition between Taurus and Scorpio, there's going to be a lot of energy regarding construction, transformation, and growth. And if you have an opposition between Gemini and Sagittarius, there's going to be a lot of issues with ideas, philosophy, and communication. If you have an opposition between Cancer and Capricorn, there's going to be issues with care, authority, and guardianship. If you have an opposition between Leo and Aquarius, there's going to be issues with performance, observance, and love. And then lastly, if you have an opposition between Virgo and Pisces, it's going to be around purity, mysticism, and purpose. And so I've decided to make a series to kind of go in depth, because what does it mean, like, if you have an Aries Libra opposition, like really, like individuality, liberty, and freedom, how does that have anything to do with astrology? And so I forgot to add this part, but I figured I'd just add it anyway. Oppositions can be boiled down to just two, honestly. 3 of the oppositions have to do with air and fire, and then the other 3 have to do with earth and water. So, right, so 3 of the oppositions are kind of all similar, and then the other 3 are also very similar, because if you take fire and air, fire represents the self, and then air represents people. So if you have cardinal fire and cardinal air, like Aries and Libra, it's like, okay, so initiation of the self versus initiation of a relationship. And then if you have fixed fire and fixed air, okay, then so the fixed is kind of maintaining, so it's the maximization, it's on the grand scale, so it's Leo versus Aquarius, so it's the fixed self, which is the entire individual's legacy, all of the individuals. And then Aquarius is the entire community, all relationships, so it's society. So Aquarius is society, and Leo is the individual, or all of the individuals. And then you have Gemini and Sagittarius, which is mutable air and mutable fire. Gemini is, and what does mutable mean? It means adaptable, it means change. So it's adaptable in its relationships. And then Sagittarius is adaptable with the self. So there's like self-exploration and understanding yourself, right? But the air and fire oppositions are kind of all the same, because it's the self versus the group. And then if you look at water and earth, earth is just the material world. It's just the material stuff, right? It's the life that we know, what we can see and what we can touch. And then water represents things that we can't touch, like feelings, emotions, things that are intangible, the spiritual world, but they're still very important. But there's this duality here, because it's the material world versus the spiritual world, the physical versus the metaphysical. And so if you have cardinal earth and cardinal water, Capricorn, which is cardinal earth, it's just initiation of the earth world. It's taking control of the earth world. This is why Capricorn sets goals. And then Cancer is initiation of the spiritual and emotional world, and that's why Cancer is very moody, and it's a balance, and then you have fixed earth and fixed water, which is Taurus, fixed on the material world, and then Scorpio is fixed on, like this order and chaos. And then, you have Virgo, which is mutable earth, and you have Pisces, which is mutable water, right? So Virgo is very adaptable and very changeable when it comes to the material world. Pisces is very spiritual, and this is why Pisces can pick up things and understand things very intuitively, because it's a very spiritual, intuitive sign, because it's mutable in the water energy. But essentially all of these oppositions are kind of the same, because it's just earth versus water. It's the material versus the immaterial. And then when you kind of combine them all together in like the grand square, the grand cross, right, you have the self, the material world, the immaterial world, and other people, and that's it. And I'll admit it kind of has a lot to do with kind of my own interpretation and my own understanding, because I feel like all these oppositions have lessons, and they have very, like, they can all kind of express themselves in very different ways, and they can play out differently in different people's lives, but they all kind of have a hidden theme. So I'm gonna go through all of these in depth, so stay tuned for it. And then of course, when you learn about these oppositions, it really helps with the North Node and the South Node, or Rahu and Ketu, because wherever Rahu is, Ketu is always opposite of that, and it's really important to understand the opposition between the signs so that you understand, because if Rahu is trying to get one sign, it means it's being held back by the opposite sign. So if you have like Rahu and Aries, you're being held back by that Libran energy. And so you need to learn how to use your Libran skills to develop that Aryan energy that your Rahu or the dragon's head wants. The north node is the dragon's head and the south node is the dragon's tail. So anyway, that's why I'm doing a series on this, because I think it's really interesting. Yeah, thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned for my Aries Libra opposition video.